Good morning. It is Monday, the 11th of September, 2023. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Morning Brew here on Labour Social. I'm Graham Hughes. A lot of people in the comments asking about Phil. He's feeling a bit better today. He's feeling a bit better, but he's still quite under the weather. So hopefully he might be able to present the show tomorrow. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see how he gets on through today and tonight. So today, obviously, is the anniversary of September the 11th. Well, it was always September the 11th. It's the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks in 2001. It's been 22 years. 22 years. My God, that's a long time. Since the attack happened. And really, that was the catalyst because it came at the sort of the birth of the internet. Don't forget, at the time, YouTube didn't exist. Google had only been around for 3 years. I don't know if people used to Google as a verb by then. I think they did, but people still were just about getting online. And then this crazy thing happens, which was quite a simplistic plan by the people who did it, because hijacking planes have been done a million times before. If you want to fly a plane, the difficult bits are taking off and landing, so flying about of it isn't that difficult, and they had some training, and they had a lot of money behind them. This was a well-financed operation because the Saudis were behind it, specifically Osama bin Laden, who was a multimillionaire Nepo baby from Saudi Arabia. The hijackers were mostly from Saudi Arabia, and I think a couple were from UAE, and maybe one was from Yemen, and maybe one was from Egypt. But the flood of conspiracy theories that came out after the 9/11 attacks was predictable, I guess, but also it was a whole new experience because previously conspiracy theorists, they could only really chat to people, I don't know, in a cafe or a pub or somewhere. They couldn't get their crazy little theory out into the wider world. And then suddenly people embraced the internet and chat boards on the internet as a way, bulletin boards, as a way of disseminating this nonsense. We used to get chain emails where it was like, send this to 10 people. You got an email off some random uncle you hadn't spoken to in years, and they'll say, "Oh, it's all a conspiracy. It was all a insurance job." And what bothers me about this is that when something happens that is just so blatantly obvious to me that that's what happened, trying to pick holes in that narrative is painful when we did things on the back of 9/11 that were disgraceful, that were absolutely abhorrent, like the invasion of Iraq and the de-Baathification of Iraq, which came afterwards. And yet people seemed at the time, and this is my experience, okay? So, if you've got some statistics to back up some other argument, go ahead and shoot. But at the time, it felt like people were more concerned that 9/11 might have been an inside job because, airplane fuel doesn't melt steel. Okay, I'm pretty sure that no aircrafts have flown into any of these buildings in the UK, these schools that are crumbling. They're still crumbling. You don't have to heat a bit of metal up to X number of degrees, which is its melting point, in order to weaken it sufficiently to bend it, as any ironmonger will tell you. But people seem more concerned about that than the invasion of Iraq. And it was kind of like the way that the governments at the time, the US and the UK and others, put this together was to say, well, we know it was the Saudis who did this, but they're our strategic partners for oil. What's it called? Amoco? Amoco, is it? The big Saudi Arabian American oil conglomerate, extinction juice conglomerate. And so instead of going after Saudi Arabia, they went after Afghanistan, which has been shown to be absolutely bloody useless. 20 years we spent in Afghanistan, and it didn't get rid of the Taliban because they just, anything that they could have done, they kind of did it wrong. They didn't think of a good way of getting the people on side. they didn't do it for the right reasons, because they were like, well, we don't want to get attacked again. And it's like, well, stop giving money to Saudi Arabians then, maybe. um, but at least if you squinted really hard, you could see a connection between 9/11 and Afghanistan. Osama bin Laden was based in Afghanistan at some point. Obviously, he was found in Pakistan in the end. But Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. Nothing whatsoever to do with 9/11. Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with 9/11. And I'm not saying that we should leave murderous dictators in place. I think we should do everything in our power to dethrone them. But we live in a world in which Vladimir Putin is allowed to get away with the most horrific war crimes imaginable, and no one's taken him to task about it. And the G20 meets up in India, and they don't even make a, did they meet in India? I think so. They don't even make issue a statement condemning what Russia has done. Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable cowardice on a biblical level. But that's when going back to 9/11, that's when I sort of realized how the powerful love to use conspiracy theories in order to get their real agenda across. Okay, so they distract people with absolute bullshit nonsense about 9/11 or the moon landings or JFK's assassination or Princess Diana dying. How can someone famous just die in a car crash? That can't happen. There must be a conspiracy. And they use that to stop people from really looking into, why are we invading Iraq? Why are we bringing in austerity? Why aren't we doing something about climate change? Oh, well, you can't trust the scientists. Sorry, you can't trust the scientists. No, you can't trust them. You can't trust them. I'm like, okay, all right. Brian Ferguson there is salut Graham. Bonjour le chapeau, the hat of Graham. I'm just become aware of sovereign citizens crazy on another level of delusion. Yeah, I think Jacob Rees-Mogg's dad wrote a book called The Sovereign Individual, which is, tells you everything you need to know. Libertarianism is almost a conspiracy theory in itself, but it's this weird mindset that very, very rich people have, that they don't need society. They don't need schools to educate people to be able to read and use the internet. They don't need police to enforce the law. They don't need courts. They don't need jails. They don't need anything. They just need themselves and their sovereign individual. And again, it falls into the same sort of realms of delusion. That are just, it's a bit painful. Now I want to just find something online here, because I made a note of this. This is about, God, this must have been about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Sorry. Still not shook this cold. So basically, I wrote an article, this was 12 years ago, addressing this episode of BBC Horizon that I had watched. And it was just, it was horrific. There was a guy called Dellingpole, Dellingpole, I think his name was. Let me see and try and find his bloody, no. What was his name? I can't remember. Well, he was talking to, oh, here we go. Yes, something Dellingpole. Yes, he's a conspiracy theory person. I'm just going to look him up. Dellingpole. There you go. James, that's the guy. James Dellingpole. I want to read this quote, okay? Because this is coming from a conspiracy theorist who doesn't believe that climate change is real. And we often refer to this graphic here, which was published, I think, in 2009, at the time of the Copenhagen COP summit, in which nothing was agreed. And it just perfectly encapsulates the problem with the conspiracy theory mindset. Because here you have a bunch of things that would be absolutely awesome for us to have. Energy independence. Let's not be dependent on Saudi Arabia or Qatar for our oil and gas. How about that? That would be wonderful, wouldn't it? Preserve the rainforests. Well, that would be wonderful, wouldn't it? Because we need rainforests because they produce a lot of oxygen. Quite important. Sustainability. Being able to reuse things, not create so much waste. Green jobs. There's so many jobs that can be created now in the green tech sector. And the jobs are here. They're not on an oil rig on the other side of the freaking planet. They're here in this country right now. You can stay in this country and create energy in this country and still live with your family and still work 9 to 5 and go home. You can't do that with oil or gas, or even coal. You're on the other side of the world. You're a geologist. Okay, we'll go to Argentina and find some coal. Okay, great. Oh, you're a diver, are you? We'll go and dive in the bloody Pacific Ocean and try and find some oil in there. Well, that's not really why I learned to dive. I wanted to see the beauty of the seabed, not destroy it. Livable cities. Oh my God, that is almost going back to the 15-minute city thing. Another thing that the conspiracy theorists go nuts about. Oh my God, everything within 15 minutes walk or cycle. That would be tyranny. No, it wouldn't. It would be progress. It would actually be going back to a model of towns and cities and villages that actually freaking worked for a change. Renewables. Again, the idea of this unlimited power. Unlimited power, as Emperor Palpatine once probably said. Clean water and air, so important. Our air quality in this country is dreadful. You're looking at thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people dying every year from air pollution. And then you've got clean water. That would be nice, wouldn't it? That our sewage wasn't going into all our rivers, that people weren't getting ill from swimming in our shoreline. You know what I mean? Like, healthy children. Again, asthma rates went through the roof. Went through the roof in the 1990s and 2000s because everyone was still smoking, and people who lived in the, underneath the airline path to Heathrow or something, they all of them got respiratory illnesses from all the particles of filth that was showering down on them from above. Anyway, back to this James Delingpole creep. So he's a probably privately educated gobshite. He's one of these people who's like a talking head. I think he used to write for the Times and the Mail and the Express and the Telegraph and the Spectator. Oh my God, the fabulous five, the frothing five, the filthy five. Anyway, so this is what he wrote in 2011. I'm going to read this to you. I'll put it on this screen so it can look like I'm sort of reading this idea. The warmest faith, so fervently held and promulgated, that's a word, by the Met Office is exactly the same faith, so passionately, unswervingly followed by David Cameron, Chris Hughes, Greg Barker, the coalition's energy spokesman in the House of Lords, Lord Marland, and all but 5 members of the last Parliament. And also by the BBC, the Prince of Wales, now King, almost every national newspaper, the European Union, the Royal Society, the New York Times, CNBC, the Obama administration, the Australian and New Zealand government, your children's schools, our major universities, our minor universities, the University of East Anglia, your local council. And here's the disturbing part. Truly, there just aren't enough bullets. He wrote that. He wrote that in the Telegraph. Truly, there aren't enough bullets. Let's go through that again. For David Cameron, Chris Hughes, Greg Barker, Lord Marland, okay, all but 5 members of the last Parliament. Truly, there aren't enough bullets. The BBC. Truly, there aren't enough bullets. The guy who's now king of this country. Truly, there aren't enough bullets. Almost every national newspaper. You sure about that, mate? Not the ones you've worked for. The European Union. Truly, there aren't enough bullets. This is 5 years before Brexit. The Brexit vote. The Royal Society. The Royal Society, the oldest and most hallowed scientific national institution in the world. Founded by the likes of Halley And I don't think Isaac Newton founded it, but he came quite early on. But responsible for the great works of Robert Hooke and Isaac Newton, and work done by people like Sir Christopher Wren. But you know, the Royal Society. There aren't enough bullets for the Royal Society. The New York Times, CNBC, the Obama administration. It's talking about the President of the United States here at the time. There aren't enough bullets. The Australian and New Zealand governments. Your children's schools. Let's put them together. Your children, this is a conspiracy theorist. Your children's schools, ... Truly, there aren't enough bullets for your children's schools. Our major universities, our minor universities. Oh, would they be our remaining universities? So is that like everyone who goes to university, there aren't enough bullets? Okay, this guy went to Oxford. Oh no, he went to Malvern College. Oh yeah, he's privately educated. Your local council, finally. Truly, there aren't enough bullets. I know I'm labouring the point here, but this fella wrote this in a national newspaper, getting all of these conspiracy theorists like Penis Corbyn, really excited about the idea that the entire scientific establishment isn't just wrong, deserves to be deaded, deserves to be made unalived with bullets. This is what it. And this article has now been deleted off the Telegraph website. Maybe you could find it on one of the archive sites, Way Back Machine or whatever it's called. But oh my God, this is a reality that we are living with. The rich, powerful, privately educated, ruling elite spreading conspiracy theories, violent conspiracy theories. So this came out 10 years after 9/11. But it did make me think of the same conspiracy sort of stuff that came out during the horrific attack on the Twin Towers and the Pentagon. And there was another aircraft that was supposed to go to the White House as well. Right, so I'm going to get rid of this. No, hang on. I'll do that again. There you go. And I'm going to read some of your chat in here. Phil, Bin Laden was trained by the CIA to fight the Russians. So Afghanistan was us trying to correct their own mistakes. Indeed. Well, if you watch, James Bond? I think it might be the Living Daylights. Yeah, it's the Living Daylights. He joins up with the Mujahideen to fight the Russians in Afghanistan. That actually happens in a Bond film. Yeah, in the 80s when they were on our side. The origins of the moon conspiracy theories is a certain person in the publicity department of Rocket Dean when the mighty F1 engine kept exploding on the test bed. I mean, that's a particularly frustrating one. I think it's a bit more harmless than saying that actually climate change isn't happening, obviously, or that X country is responsible for 9/11 when it wasn't. But yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, I see landing on the moon as the crowning achievement of humanity, of our ambition, and it was one hell of a step for science. And I'm a big cheerleader of science, so right up my street. And to imagine that it was all faked, and you had thousands of people working at NASA and around the world, and that dish in Australia, is it the Parks? Is it the Parks dish in Australia? There was a movie called The Dish about it with Sam Neill in it, and essentially that was the dish that they picked up the transmission from for the moon landing. That one small step. That transmission went to Australia. It didn't go to America. It went to Australia. And the big one for me is it was the height of the freaking Cold War, guys. Do you think if it wasn't real, the Russians wouldn't have mentioned it? Do you think? Also, Trump was president for 4 years. He had access to all this secret information. Do you think if aliens were really real, or that JFK was assassinated, or man didn't land on the moon, he wouldn't be going around telling absolutely everyone about it? I mean, this is a guy who held classified files in his toilet and showed documents to people and went, hey, isn't this cool? This is like classified and it's secret and I'm not supposed to show anyone because I'm not president anymore. Look at this document. And they've got him on. They've got a recording of him doing that. Oh my God. BUFC Mike, how about the trillions of dollars of money that has been identified as missing from US coppers just the day before the jet happened to take out that office? I mean, there you go. I mean, it's just, well, what about? I don't. Do you have any evidence of this? No. Can you bring it to a court of law and prosecute anyone? No. The idea that something of that scale, going back to 9/11 or the moon landing, could be a conspiracy falls down because you need to find a person who is corrupt enough to do this kind of thing and kill their own country people or people from another country, but, you know, have the lack of morality, the lack of morals to willfully kill 3,000 innocent civilians. And then you need to have them so that enough that you can pay them enough to keep them quiet. That'll keep them quiet. Now, if I knew that and I was being held to, you know, keep me gob shut, I don't think there's enough money in the world to keep me quiet. And I think most people are like that. But even if you were so corrupt that you were like, no, I'll just take the money. How much money would this person who is so evil that they will kill 300 or help kill 3,000 people, how much money would it take to keep them quiet? Because surely the moral compass is not pointing in the right direction in the first place. So maybe in the first year of keeping them quiet, it's $1 billion. Maybe by now it's, I don't know, $500 billion a year to keep them quiet. And there would have to be thousands, literally thousands of people keeping quiet. How much would that cost and why? What was the point of 9/11 if it wasn't to have a terrorist strike against the US from a bunch of radicalized Saudis who hated the US? It makes sense to me. It's like someone gets murdered because someone hates them and they go, oh, I'm going to murder you because I hate you. That kind of cause and effect to me. Someone gets murdered and it's like, no, it's a big conspiracy. Why? We caught the person at the time. We got all this evidence that they did it. And, you know, what's the problem? Yeah, but it must be more exciting than that, surely. It must be more incredible than that because, yeah. So I'd like to just, oh my God, I'm losing my place all over the shop here. Sorry about this, but I did have things set up. So what I wanted to do is quote you the great Alan Moore, the author of Watchmen and V for Vendetta and From Hell and The League of Gentlemen, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which was a bad film, but it was a good comic book. The main thing I have learned about conspiracy theory is that conspiracy theorists believe in a conspiracy because it's more comforting. The truth of the world is that it's actually chaotic. The truth is that it's not the Illuminati or the Jewish banking conspiracy or the grey alien theory. The truth is far more frightening. Nobody is in control. The world is rudderless. Alan Moore, completely 100% on the money there. Very intelligent man. That's a terrifying prospect, but it's the truth. And isn't that weird? Conspiracy theories are more comforting to people than reality, because at least then there seems to be some kind of agency behind it, like some kind of human endeavor. In the same way that a child would believe that lakes exist for us to drink from, that rain exists for our crops, you know, things that happen naturally in the natural world exist for our benefit. That is a childlike way of viewing the universe. The universe, the reality is cold, dark, and doesn't give a fuck. I'm sorry, that's just the fact of life. Mother Nature, you know, people who tell you, oh, it's natural. It's really natural. It's good. It's natural. Yeah, uranium is natural. Naturally occurring. That happens. Arsenic, natural. Naturally occurs. Polonium. Don't know if you want to put any of that on your pizza, but it's natural. If you could argue that, great. But the reality is, nature wants you dead. nature is always striving towards improving its current models of any given species, any given life form. It's constantly on the prowl for improvement. And yeah, you don't make the cut, you don't breed. The old Darwin Awards. Why it's called the Darwin Awards, isn't it? James Delingpole, Climate Change Now, writes in the Times. Oh, God, the Murdoch rag. Alan Moore is quite right, says Christopher Bowles. He is. But the insurance money, you'd have to spend more on keeping people quiet than you would get for the insurance. Like, I rig a building full of explosives that's being used every day by office workers and cleaners and staff, catering. Rig it full of bombs. Go on, see how you get on. You might be able to drive a truck into the bottom of it and blow it up. I mean, what? And everyone became a structural engineer overnight. This happens every time, doesn't it? Anytime anything big happens, like these people who became epidemiologists overnight when COVID happened. Now we've got these concrete experts, knowing everything about rack concrete all of a sudden. And you're like, really? Really? I mean, my limited knowledge of concrete comes from actually making stuff out of concrete over on Ginger Island. So I get the process, but that's about it. I mean, I couldn't tell you what, the actual molecular structure of it or anything like that. It's just a passing thing. I like to quote from science, from the scientific textbooks, stuff that's been peer reviewed, not just something that's someone's opinion masquerading as fact. And if you look at the things that have happened in the world over the last few years and how people who go in for conspiracy theories have been manipulated by the ruling elites, by Trump, by the likes of Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson. The idea that the EU was, well, come on, tell me some of the conspiracy theories you heard about the EU. They were trying to make our bananas straight, the bastards. They were trying to ban really small condoms or bring in really small condoms, the bastards. They were going to ban children's roundabouts. You know, the roundabouts you have on a playground that you spin round on? Yeah, they're going to ban them. These are all news reports. They've already reported in the rags, in the conspiracy theory rags, of why we need to get out of the EU. Turkey was going to join the EU. It was a conspiracy theory. It could never happen while we were in the EU if we didn't want it to happen, because we had an absolute veto on any new members. Turkey is going to join the EU. There were adverts put out on Facebook via Cambridge Analytica. Illegal adverts put out targeted towards people who look like, they might be a bit of a dupe, saying that the EU was going to take away your cup of tea. A ludicrous conspiracy theory. There were adverts saying that they were killing polar bears, for Christ's sake. They went on people's private Facebook pages and they could see everything because Facebook provided them that data. And they said, oh, this person likes animals. Okay, well, we'll put an advert on their feed that says the EU is trying to kill all the polar bears. And they did it. And they got away with it. Look at Trump now. Look at Trump and the fact that he is saying to everyone, oh, it's a conspiracy. I didn't do anything. It was a perfect phone call. They're just picking on me. And it's like, okay, it's the establishment. They're out to get me. But you are the establishment. Yeah, it's these billionaires and cretins. They're out to get me. But you are a billionaire and a cretin. Yeah, it's a deep state. Oh, okay. It's the same thing that the Tory government that's been in charge for 13 freaking years talks about when they talk about the blob. The blob. It's the blob. It's all the blob's fault. And going back, whenever you've had this a conspiracy theory that's been picked up and run with by a government anywhere in the world, death and destruction has always followed. So you could look at the ideology of the Khmer Rouge and the fact that they killed people who wore glasses in the end. You look at the massacre in Rwanda in 1994. That was started off by a conspiracy theory that the then president of Rwanda had been killed by the Tutsis. And so the Hutus went crazy and killed 800,000 people, butchered them in the streets. In South Africa, the government embraced the idea that either there was no such thing as AIDS or that HIV didn't lead to AIDS. And they had a health minister who believed conspiracy theories. There's a whole swathe of information about this that was uncovered by Ben Goldacre, who's writes Bad Science column. He used to write the Bad Science column for The Guardian. I don't know what he's up to these days. But there was a vitamin salesman called Matthias Rath, and he went over to South Africa to try and sell his vitamin pills and told people to take them instead of, the antiretrovirals that would actually prolong their life if they had HIV. And the health secretary in South Africa at the time, in the early 2000s, actually promoted these ideas and told people that they should just eat green leafy veggies instead. Polio would have been eradicated by now in West African countries, and in Nigeria in particular, had it been essentially not for these crazy bastards who went out, some government officials, and told people that they were putting HIV in the vaccination needles, started a whole conspiracy about it, and made people feel scared to give their children the polio vaccination. I don't think polio is on a spoon anyway. It's not even in a bloody needle. But that's the kind of thing where it does real, actual, physical damage. Measles got eradicated in this country. And I have a deep personal hatred of not just measles, but people who are on the side of measles. These people who are like, give measles a chance, man. These people who are anti-vaxxers. Because one of the reason that my partner is deaf is that she had measles as a child when she was 4 years old. She got measles and she went deaf overnight. And that affects everything we do in our lives. And had she been vaccinated, she couldn't be vaccinated because she might have been allergic to one of the ingredients. She relied on herd immunity, or her parents relied on herd immunity. They didn't necessarily do anything wrong. They weren't anti-vaxxers. But the people out there going, I don't know about giving little Timmy a jab, he'll laugh it off. He's a good kid. Yeah, but it's not about just you, mate. It's about society. It's about eradicating a potentially deadly disease like measles, or something that can lead to life-changing issues as a child or later in life. And we could have got rid of it, and we chose not to because of conspiracy theorists. I hope I've got across to you in the last half an hour how damaging conspiracy theories are. But I'll leave you with this. I'll just read a couple of things first. Reads conspiracy theories are the worst. Is surprised videos does not like conspiracy theories. Well, there you go. Bad Science was a good book. It was. And so was Bad Pharma. Scroungers and Striver rhetoric is some of the worst kind of conspiracy theories tied to falsehoods regarding evolution and progression. Please learn. Absolutely. Scroungers and Scroungers. Yeah, absolutely. P.S. Nature is not trying to improve each species over time. Evolution doesn't care about good or bad. It's simply promoting selecting traits that are more successful in changing environments. Okay, yes, Skunky. Okay, you've got a point there. Like, there's no mind behind evolution, but just the way it turns out. Someone put it this really well on TikTok: is you can't fuck if you're dead. There you go. That's evolution for you in a nutshell. So any trait that leads to an early demise will be bred out through the course of a species' life. And obviously you have these what do they call these arms wars, these arms conflicts escalating between different prey and predator groups and things like that. The ibex will get a little bit faster, and then the cheetah will have to get a little bit faster in the next generation. Eventually they'll all running at 100 miles an hour. Pagans and heathens could help with climate change messaging to the public, given our close relationship to Earth herself. Just another possible bit of going unheeded. Polio was never an issue. How quickly memory fades. Polio was awful. Well, we saw it with COVID and the COVID deniers, people, the anti-vaxxers who cropped up saying, no, don't get vaccinated. And it is remarkable. If you, I wish I had like a researcher here, so I could go get this and bring it up on the screen, but it's just me. They had a graph, and it was the number of people who had died from COVID-19, and it was based on the voting intention, or the way people voted, the registered Democrats, registered Republicans, and there's a point where they're just the same. They're the same, going up and up and up, and then the vaccine comes out, the Democrats goes down, and the Republicans just keep going up, because Republican mindset, fearful, bit stupid, they go in for this kind of thing. They go in for conspiracy theories. They thought that the vaccine was out to get them. It was a 3G conspiracy involving Bill Gates to track your... Oh, fucking hell. Seriously. Like, even just saying it out my mouth just feels so stupid and juvenile and childish and just absolutely banal. It's they're putting little microchips inside you, and that's how they track you. I'll quote Doug Stanhope. Well, I'll misquote him. I'll paraphrase. They're not that interested in you, Barry. Barry, they don't give... Do you know the government? Yeah? They don't give a crap about you. They don't care that you went to the chippy last Thursday night. They don't care. Why would they follow you? You're not that interesting. If you're a Russian spy, they might follow you. What would be the point? You put half your life on social media anyway, without anyone even asking you to. Here's me on holiday. Here's me going here. Here's me going there. Here's a picture of me dinner. The government want to know what you had for dinner. It can either A, look at your Facebook feed, or B, spend billions, plus trillions, putting little microchips into people so they can track them. And oh my God. People are obsessed with passports. I want passport that gets stamped when you leave the country. Oh, so they can keep track of where you are in Europe. Whereas before, it was like, oh, you could be anywhere. Now they can keep track on you. Well done, Brexit. Anyway, finally, before I go, and thanks for the super chats. I know we didn't get much this morning, but thank you very much. And thanks for all the good chat in there. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to talk more about your stuff, your things. But I will be going over now to the Discord channel. So if you are a Discorder, we're going over there for Morning Brew Extra. So I'll be on there on video, and you can come and have a chat with me. We might have a listen to what's happening on James O'Brien's show, but I'll be there for the next half an hour. So if you want to join me on that, and you are a patron or a YouTube member, you are very welcome to do so. So the final thought that I had before I was going to go is just how the whole of the Nazi ideal stemmed from conspiracy theories. The stabbed in the back theory. Does that sound familiar? Does stabbed in the back sound familiar? Does that sound like something like Trump would say? Does that sound like something like the previous leader of the Labour Party's fans would say that happened to him? Stabbed in the back. In World War One, Germany only lost World War One because of socialists, gypsies, homosexuals, and above all, Jewish people. And we saw how that turned out. I don't think conspiracy theories are harmless. And it used to be governments propagating this crap, or people who wanted to be in governments, wanted to take over. And now it's normal people like you and I propagating this crap. When you put those two things together, you get things like Trump and Brexit. Let's just sit down, be sensible. Occam's razor. The most obvious answer is usually the right one, generally speaking. And we need to stop losing our minds over nonsense while ignoring the real, actual conspiracies going on right now, where the Russians get involved in our Brexit vote. There's no investigation into that. I don't see the same anti-vaxxers, COVID, the COVID deniers, climate change deniers. I don't see them getting vexed about that. Our democracy being damaged. Which essentially is what conspiracy theories do. It damages democracy. Because in order for democracy to work, we need a well-informed electorate. And if people are just making shit up and living in their own little bloody fantasy world, we are never going to develop to a point where democracies actually work well for the people who live in those democracies. Charlie Nelson, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. I'm reminded of when Chris Bryant called Dan Wootton a nutcase. Well, yeah, I made a video about GB News over the weekend. Just what the hell. Anyway, so I'm going to head over to there now. I should be back tonight, depending on how Tan is feeling. because she's not very well either. Let's have a look. Okay, yes, she's definitely going to do the swear jar. Okay, so 8 o'clock tonight, me and Supertansky, swear jar. So I got my swear jar ready. And David Faulkner, 78 Hong Kong dollars. Thank you very much, David. Conspiracy theories provide simplified explanation of complexity in reality. There's nothing wrong with engaging in them, but should not be accepted without solid evidence, otherwise it's pure faith. Couldn't agree more. So thanks very much for watching. And yeah, I go back to a quote from Christopher Hitchens, the great Christopher Hitchens. Unfortunately, the wrong brother died. Who said, anything that can be asserted without evidence may be dismissed without evidence. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.